Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. You're frustrated. I know. You want to break something. I know. Nothing is going the way that you thought it should. Believe me, I know. Right now, you need to take a break. Breathe in. Breathe out. Just chill for a minute and join us on Backlit Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, Zoe. That's Z-O or Z-O if you're outside of the U.S. It's the 119th episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We really appreciate it. We watch movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I talk about my favorite parts, and I'll share a little bit of trivia along the way. If you like what you're about to hear, then please tell your family, tell your friends, and tell all your neighbors. Tell your teenage werewolf about our humble little show, Backlit Cinema, the podcast. And now, I have a brand new contestant that has entered the chat. Armed with enthusiasm, wit, and charm, this new podcaster will impact you with her incredible show, Retromade. She's also the co-host of One More Round, the Rocky Series podcast. Ladies, gentlemen, and gender fluid, may I introduce Katie!
Hello.
Katie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing swell. Swell is my natural state.
That's great. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining this little show. I really appreciate it. I've been able to sample some of your work. You are fantastic. You hit all the right nostalgia buttons. We're in the same club, and I'm glad to know you.
Same. I'm excited for our discussion today.
Awesome. So I have a few questions prepared. Now, you've heard a couple of my shows, and my audience knows that I'm not Walter Cronkite. I'm not going to be hitting you with the hard-hitting questions.
Okay, good. Phew.
Right, but I'm going to do my best with my simple questions. So my first question that I have for you is, you've got 2 podcast shows, at least 2 shows that I know of. So how many more do you intend to do?
Oh goodness. It keeps me pretty busy, I gotta say. So, Rocky will be going for a long time. So we're currently on season 2 of One More Round, where we cover the Rocky movies. And so it's multiple episodes that covers a movie. So we're going to go up to Rocky 6, aka Rocky Balboa. And then after that, same group, same show, we're going to cover famous boxing movies in a similar way. So that show will keep me busy for several years. And then my new show, Retromade, it's new. So I don't plan on starting another show. I think there are plenty of fun movies from the 80s and 90s with tons of pop culture thrown in that will keep me busy for several years. So I think I'm going to just stick with the 2.
Okay. Because I was definitely concerned about your work-life balance, because me with just this one show, it's a lot of work, and I'm starting to learn that I can spread some of that work during the week, so I don't have to cram everything on one day.
Yes, it's a lot. It is a lot. And so I don't do the heavy lifting on the Rocky show. I'm a co-host. There are 3 of us. So Ryan he does all of the heavy lifting. So thankfully, I don't have to do the editing and all of that for that show. But yes, since starting Retromade, it is a lot of work, but it's fun. So it's a good hobby to have.
It's definitely something that you have to be passionate about, because even though I enjoy podcasting, it's when I get to the editing that I start to cringe. It's bad enough that I have to listen to my own voice, which I make sound as smooth and as nice as possible, but I don't like listening to it. But so listening to that for an additional 2 hours after I've recorded a show is I don't look forward to it, but I do enjoy doing the work. So that's why I do it. That's why I engage with the editing, and that's like the bulk of the work. And then, of course, there's the promotion and all that. So I'm glad you're in this fight and that you're willing to take on the challenges.
I'm glad to be here as well. And like I said, it's fun guesting on other shows as well. So I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk Teen Wolf.
Yes. So my next question. What's one of your favorite nostalgia moments? And I ask this because your show is based on nostalgia. What I like about the show is that not only do you go into the movies or the shows that you intend to talk about, but you do a deep dive of the cultural moments of when the movie had premiered. So you talk about like the politics of the time, the popular TV shows, the top music hits that were going on. So that's all great. I was pleasantly surprised with the scope of what you had covered. So what are some of your favorite nostalgic moments from, the past, the yesteryear, the times
Oh,
gone by?
oh my gosh. Actually, that is a Walter Cronkite type question. That's a tough one. I guess it's hard to put into words at one moment. It's really just the experience. And I do romanticize the past. So I was born in the 80s. So if that gives any indication, but that time, I just really do feel like being a kid in the 80s and early 90s and then high school in the 90s. Um, it's it seems like a simpler time and maybe it's just that I was a kid, so it's simpler, so it's hard to say. I do romanticize the past, but there's just nothing like, the cereal combined with the Saturday morning cartoons, combined with the must-see TV at night, these sitcoms. I'm a big sitcom person, so it just is this warm, it's like a warm bath, just this very comforting feeling, nostalgia, and the 80s especially that it has. So I don't know if I could pick one moment. It's just being a kid in the 80s, riding your bike around the neighborhood, coming home, watching these shows, eating food that wasn't good for me. I don't care. I like sugar cereal. So yeah, it was just I love the idea of it. It's a comforting feeling. I don't know if that quite answered your question or not.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when you had mentioned it, as soon as you started to talk, I started to think about Saturday morning cartoons, and I remember
Yeah.
like my only responsibilities was going to school, and I barely wanted to do that,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
doing homework,
Yeah. You didn't
and
have like
so
real responsibilities yet. Yeah.
right, right, and so I grew up in that block of time. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So that block of time when you only had a certain amount of kids programming. So that one was like the afternoon after school,
Oh
and
yeah.
you would watch cartoons until live action came on, and then because you didn't want to do anything else, you would grudgingly watch some of the live action shows. Like I would grudgingly watch Mr. Rogers after all. I was like, oh man, there are no more cartoons. Well, I guess I gotta watch this guy.
You're
Right.
like, I can't possibly do my homework at this time. Like
Right,
I have
right,
been a procrastinator my entire life. And if anything, it's getting worse now. And so
right.
yeah, I agree. I'll watch anything to avoid doing homework or whatever else I'm supposed to do.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I can't watch the Grammys today, because the Grammys or the Oscars or any award show reminds me of the times when I was growing up where I couldn't actually watch them because I had this huge, uh, gigantic load of homework assignments that I had to do. Like it seems like whenever these shows come on, every class wanted you to do an enormous amount of homework, and
Well, they were aired on Sunday nights too, right? So you'd have to do your homework over the weekend, like on Sunday night. So, and
yeah, yeah.
those like award shows are on Sundays. Mhm.
Right. Just procrastinate until it's too late. And
Yep.
now and the shows are on and I want to watch shows. Can't watch shows because I procrastinated until Sunday night to do the homework. So yeah,
Same.
it's just crazy. And then Saturday morning cartoons. So the only time I wanted to wake up early was on Saturdays or Christmas Day, whenever that happened to happen. So
Indeed. Indeed.
just wake up, just try to catch the earliest cartoons that came on. So now that we've tickled our nostalgia a little bit, one last question. Do you watch remakes? So I asked this question because I just recently saw the trailer for the remake of White Men Can't Jump, and instantly felt a kind of a
Ooh.
cringe factor. It's like,
Yeah.
ugh, do they really need to remake this? And a lot of people feel that ways about a lot of shows and movies. But then I start to think, well, there are a lot of movies that are remakes that I didn't realize were remakes I until it was, brought to my attention. So movies like Little Shop of Horrors or Ocean's 11, Cape Fear. We just did The Fugitive. I didn't know like until like I mean, I knew at the time, but like later at the time when people would talk about the shows when I watched them, that they were remakes. And
Mhm.
so the I've come to understand that a remake isn't for the audience, the older audience. It's for the newer audience that didn't know that these were aren't original properties. So when, on that lens, I ask you, do you like remakes? Do you watch remakes? Or are there ones that you avoid? How do you feel in general?
Really good questions, though. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of remakes, especially of there are just some movies I'm like, please don't touch that. Just please don't touch that. Like White Men Can't Jump was so good. Footloose, like I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I'm like, don't touch Footloose. Or, I'm like, if they ever don't touch Rocky, don't touch The Breakfast Club. These are movies, just please don't. But you do bring up a good point about similar, like Cape Fear. I only recently realized that that was a remake as well. So I guess my feeling on remakes is if the original wasn't this beloved film, then maybe it's okay to remake it. But if it's a beloved film, I don't want you to touch it. That's my feeling on
Right.
remakes. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But I
So
also, I'll go ahead.
oh, I just thought of another example. So my first season of Retromade is the Ultimate Everyman, Kurt Russell and Patrick Swayze. And so obviously we're going to be covering Roadhouse,
Right.
which is so great. I mean, it's not a fantastic film, but it's kind of one of those beloved, like we all love it for a number of reasons, but they've remade Roadhouse. And that's one exception to the rule because Jake Gyllenhaal, I'm a big fan of him and I think he will actually do a good job. So I that's an exception to the rule where I'm curious to see how that turns out.
Right. Did
What
you
were you going
see
to
the
say?
well, I don't care now because you brought up that remake. So I need to ask you a different question. Did you see it was a clip of the movie. It's not really a clip. It's more like they're doing like a kind of a fake press conference. So you see this scene in perspective of the reporters on the scene. So it looks like a real, like when two fighters are doing like a face to face or whatever at a press
Oh,
conference. They're doing a weigh in. That's what it is. The weigh in. And I forgot who their opponent is. The opponent is, I think it's a real MMA fighter, and it's Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's in character with his shirt off, and there's a little back and forth. And when I saw that, I'm like, this looks like a good clip. This looks like I might get into this movie. But I also understand that it's going to be a complete reimagining. It's not going to be the first movie because in this version, the main character Jake Gyllenhaal plays is I think he's a fighter. He's mainly a fighter. He's not like a brawler or no, he's not a what you call it. I don't think that he's
like a
what
bouncer
did
by
Patrick Swayze? A bouncer, right? I'm
mhm.
not sure if he's a bouncer. I think he's
A
a fighter.
cooler, I guess. I don't know if that was a
Right,
thing back then, but that's
right.
technically what his role was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what path he's going to take or what the shape the story is going to take. But when I saw that clip, I'm like, you know what? Jake looks pretty good. I think he's going to rock this role.
He is good. I mean, he's like legit. I don't know if you ever saw Southpaw. So he can
No, I
do the
didn't see that.
action. It's good. I like boxing and boxing movies, but yeah, he did a really good job in that too. So yeah, I feel like Jake will I calmed down after I learned that it was him.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are definitely some remakes that can be done right, and then some of them going to fail, and some of them I just like as a guilty pleasure. Like I know that the RoboCop remake doesn't actually work, but I do think it's better than a lot of the RoboCop sequels that came after the original film,
I
and
didn't ever see the remake. I didn't see
yeah,
it.
yeah, I think that the reason that it's not as good is because they don't lean on the satire elements of the original. Like the original had something to say about being human and the prospect of losing your memories and trying to find yourself again in the midst of all of that. And the new version kind of touches on it, but it doesn't hit as hard, and you don't feel the satire in that. But it's like, I think what it was that they stripped away the satire, and it doesn't, because they stripped away the satire, it doesn't hit as hard. But
Yeah.
other than that, I thought it was a pretty fair movie. But I know that a lot of
Okay.
people didn't like it, so I don't know. Examine at your own peril. Or
Good caution. Yes.
so, thanks for this short interview. Why don't you let the people know about where they can find Retromade, where they could find you on your socials? Let the people know, and I'll make sure that the details are in the show notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So, Retromade is on YouTube under Retromade Podcast. It's also on the vast majority of whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. Just search for Retromade. My tagline is Your Pop Culture Rewind. And then I'm on Facebook. So, YouTube, Facebook, and your pod app. That's kind of where you can find Retromade. It's really fun. If you like nostalgia, these movies with fun pop culture, if you want to take a trip down memory lane with a little time capsule, check me out there. And if you like Rocky movies, you might like One More Round coverage. There's 3 of us. I'm a co-host of that show. That's also on YouTube, as well as your podcast app.
Awesome. So when they look for you on Twitter, is it at Retromade?
I'm not on Twitter.
Oh, you're not on
No.
Twitter. Wow.
Nope. I'm Facebook. Yep. Facebook,
Facebook.
Retromade, and then at Retromade for YouTube.
Okay, so it's YouTube and Facebook.
YouTube, Facebook, and then however you listen to podcasts. Yep.
Awesome. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes. So
yeah, you might want to take this out, but yeah, Twitter's kind of going down the tube. So I'm like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Who knows what's going on with the dude running that now? So
right.
You can feel free to edit that out, but I'm like, I think I'll skip Twitter for now. I personally am on it, so just like me. But
right, but not the podcast.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people that have taken their shows off of YouTube, but I'm still kind of hanging. I mean, not YouTube,
Twitter.
But Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of hanging on with it, and mainly because I found a small community of podcasters and that I hang with, and I don't get as much like versus my personal page. I don't get as much as that negative content on the podcast page because I mainly just interact with those folks, and so that's what tends to show up on my feed. And it's fun hanging out with them. So as long as I feel as they're on there, then I will go ahead and stay on there. Just, for the time being. There's no crime for not being on Twitter. It's not. Yep. It's not like you're going to be penalized.
I know. I'm like, well, I'm trying to decide like what's going to be the replacement of it. I'm trying. So
right now there aren't really too many options that do a similar thing that Twitter does. Like I'm on Mastodon, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of feedback or connection with Mastodon. It's like you can post. Some people have more success than others on that platform, and then for a lot of people, it's hard to get into. It's like you can't just sign up for it like you do any other social media. There are a couple of more layers that you have to get into to do Mastodon. And that can turn people off.
Yeah, I'm actually not on it, but from what I hear, I guess the biggest pro is that it's not algorithmic. You know what I mean? Which is nice. I think that I appreciate that aspect of it. But
right. So, I remember. We need to play your trailer.
Oh.
So let's listen to the trailer for Retromade.
Calling all nostalgia nerds and retro junkies. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? I'm Katie, and this is Retromade, your pop culture rewind. Together with my totally awesome guests, we'll explore the best of the 80s and 90s. Ah, the good old days before adulting was a thing. Think of it as a VHS time capsule. We dive into iconic movies of the time grouped in thematic seasons. Stay tuned for the season 1 theme. As we break down the movie, we also explore the moments that shaped our childhoods. You know, the TV shows, music, fashion, cartoons, toys, and other cultural trends that defined the year in which each movie was released. From the classic coming of age films of John Hughes and must see mob movies to the unforgettable TV shows like The Cosby Show, Cheers, The Golden Girls, Friends, and Seinfeld, we'll discuss why these blasts from the past continue to resonate with us today. So, want to take a break from all the crazy with me every other week? Let's be BFFs who reminisce about growing up in the best era. Where to find me? Follow Retromade on your podcast app of choice and subscribe on YouTube so you never miss an installment of this little cassette roulette. And remember, be kind, rewind.
And that's it. That is the trailer for Retromade.
Thank you.
So now we are entering into the segment known as the opening credits. And what we want to talk about is a movie that we both just watched recently, a movie that is near and dear to both of our hearts. I sent you the grand list of movies, and from that list, you have chosen a movie for teenagers everywhere, Teen Wolf. So go ahead and let us know about this movie.
Yes, Teen Wolf from 1985. Scott Howard is just an average teen living an average life. He wants the prettiest girl in school and the adulation of his peers, but greatness seems to be just out of his reach. Suddenly, something changes in his life, and everything that he's ever wanted is in his grasp. Now more than ever, his morals and self-worth will be tested. Living life as a teenage werewolf.
Yes, and that is the
It's
the reason I say that is because it's kind of like your average teen drama, and then they drop in a werewolf in that drama, and now it's a whole new thing. And I think that is what I loved about it. So this movie was released in August 23rd, 1985, produced by Atlantic Entertainment Group and Wolf Kill Production. It grossed over $30 million in the US and Canada on a budget between $1.2 and $4 million, and it had unkind reviews. And I poo-poo on the people who didn't like it, but I do understand some of the aspects of why they didn't like it. And I couldn't find the exact budgets on these movies. Like some sources say 1.2 million and other sources say 4 million, but still
that's
gross
pretty
was
great. Yeah.
the gross was $30 million. So it made bank. That's why there's been like they tried a sequel and the sequel didn't work. Then there was a cartoon. Did you ever see the cartoon?
Oh, no, I didn't, but I just now recalled its existence.
Yes. I watched the cartoon, and now there's interesting because I asked you earlier about remakes, and they have a very popular Teen Wolf remake that I had not watched.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it either. Like the TV series, though, right? Isn't it a TV series?
It's a teen drama. And I was like, well, first of all, I don't need to watch another teen drama. And the other thing is, like, I don't want a dramatic representation of Teen Wolf.
No, that's the best. Yeah, the ridiculous nature of it is the best part.
Right. But I'm sure it's a fantastic show. I'm confident that it is. It's in like its 4th or 5th season, and then they made a movie based on the TV series. And so I'm sure it's great, but I feel like it's not for me. I might be tempted to check out like the pilot episode just to see what all the hubbub is about and to see how it's related to the original movie, just out of curiosity. But it's like I have enough movies and TV shows on my plate, so I don't have to delve into
right? There's so much. Yeah, I kind of wonder if it's more along the lines of like the Twilight series, like kind of capitalizing on the popularity of that genre. and with it being more dramatic. I have a feeling it has very little to do with the movie, like that there's hardly anything
Right, right,
reminiscent
right.
of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they have some of the same characters. They changed some of the names. Like I think Scott Howard in the show is called Scott McCall. So they kind of changed some of the last
Okay.
name. But the characters are all general. Like there's a Styles and I guess
Oh,
some of the
okay.
other
Well, I
characters.
could be very wrong then. That's cool. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, right, right. But I think it's a closely more related to the Archie. No, it's called Riverdale. So Riverdale is like the Archie remake, and it's
Yeah.
all super teen dramatic. So I think it's going to be like that.
Yeah, I forgot about that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only really like teen movies from like the 80s and the 90s. I don't
Right,
really,
right,
yeah.
right. I only like the ones when I was a teenager. I
Yes.
don't care
Yeah.
about I don't care about the new teen stuff now. It's
Who
like
cares about
it's
these kids now? Yeah. No,
right, right. It's for the kids. It's to
yeah.
me. I feel like I've outgrown this teen dramas. Like I don't feel that way anymore. I don't want to relive the teen years in that way. If I want to
Mhm.
relive my teen years, I'll watch something like what was that movie called? I'm trying to remember. It was a movie that we just did a couple of weeks ago. It has something to do with airplanes. I keep wanting to say Airwolf, but it wasn't Airwolf.
Oh.
Um, uh, Time, no, not Time. It had a teenager and he flew an airplane with Louis Gossett Jr. But I can't remember. But
Oh.
if I if I want to be
Okay.
nostalgic, I'll watch
Yeah.
that
Watch
one.
that. Yeah. Indeed.
So moving right along, because if I dwell on it, I'm going to spend 24 hours trying to think of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll think of it before the end of the show. So why don't you start us off? Let us know who was starring in Teen Wolf.
We have Michael J. Fox as Scott Howard. And, he needs no introduction, but, from the Back to the Future fame, The Frighteners, The Secret of My Success, which was also a really fun movie.
Right. So strangely enough, Back to the Future series is the only other series I've seen with Michael J. Fox other than Teen Wolf. But I used to be a huge fan of Family Ties, the
Oh,
shows that
yeah.
where he got his stardom from, and that he filmed at the same time as he filmed Back to the Future and Teen Wolf. He made
Mm-hmm.
Teen Wolf and Back to the Future around the same time. The only reason that he was able to make Teen Wolf is because the show had to go on break because his co-star was pregnant. We'll get into that in the trivia. But and when he made Back to the Future, he actually worked the show and the movie. It was only because he was extremely young and apparently needed very little sleep that he was able to do both movies.
That's insane. I can't buy energy. I wish I could buy energy, basically,
Right, absolutely. So up next is James Hampton. He played Harold Howard. He's been in Sling Blade, The Longest Yard from 1974, another movie that had been remade, The China Syndrome from 1979. So that was a cool role. That was a cool. Well, as far as James Hampton in this movie, he had one of the best parts of this movie, and we'll get into that in our favorite part. So who's next?
We have Susan Ursiti as Lisa, more known in the movie as Boof. I didn't even know her actual name in the movie was Lisa. She's known as Boof, Scott's best friend. And apparently her last name is Marconi. I hadn't seen her in anything else, but she is apparently from The Walking Dead. Zapped, Doing Time on Planet Earth is where you might see Susan in something else.
Right. And when she was in The Walking Dead, it's not the TV series. It's a movie called The Walking Dead that came out in 1995.
Oh, yes. I'm glad you pointed that out because I just skipped right past that. My brain didn't notice that.
Right. I want our audience to know that it's not the TV show. So you're not going to find her there. And
Thank you for pointing that out.
Right. And the other movies that she's been in, I'm not that familiar with. She didn't have a huge film career, but I think she's like behind the scenes. But as far as a screen actor, she's not really doing that much. So up next is Jerry Levine. He played Styles. Oh, see, I told you I was going to remember the movie that before the end of the podcast because I wrote it down. He was in Iron Eagle. Iron Eagle was the movie.
I've never seen Iron Eagle. Is this something
my God,
I need to see?
You have got to watch Iron Eagle.
I'll do it, and then I will let you know what I think of it.
All right, because Iron Eagle stars Louis Gossett Jr. and you just got to watch it for him.
Okay.
And I watched that movie like probably a dozen times when I was growing up. Just could. And then apparently there's this. The main song from the movie is by Queen, and I didn't know that because it didn't sound like Queen to me.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's a friend of mine from another show, and he loves that song. So, yeah, just check it out for that. So he was Jerry Levine was also in Born on the 4th of July and K9. And nowadays he's more behind the scenes. He's more of a director and producer.
Great role. Styles, such a good one.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then another friend of Scott's, Lewis, is played by Matt Adler. And you will see him, or he will look familiar from Flight of the Navigator, The Day After Tomorrow, and Chronicle.
Yes. And I've seen all of these movies. So, but I don't remember people. So
Flight of the Navigator. I mean, I feel like I think that's one we had taped like from TV, but I haven't, I think I've seen that. Maybe it's probably been like 35 years since I've seen that movie.
Right. Oh, also, I don't think I've seen this version of it. I think the version I've seen was the one, the remade version with I can't remember his name, but I think I saw the newer version and not the earlier version. But or am I thinking of the correct movie? I might be thinking of the completely different movie.
I'm not sure. There's so many.
I'm thinking, now that I think about it, I'm thinking about a movie that had been a plane that crashed, and so the survivors have to figure out how to get themselves rescued. I don't think that's what Flight of the Navigator is about.
I don't think so. I think you're thinking of a different movie.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different movie. I think it's Flight of the Phoenix or something like that. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Dennis Quaid, I think, was in that movie.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm all discombobulated now. So moving right along. Lori Griffin played Pamela Wells. She was also in Cheerleading Camp and Drug Runners. She, like some other actors, not a whole bunch of stuff in her filmography, but she played Pamela Wells very well.
She did. Yes. I'm trying to decide if however, I actually didn't think she was that pretty. Like, is that mean of me to say? She's supposed to be.
No, it's not. No,
she's
it's not
supposed
mean
to
of
be
you to
like,
say.
and she has like pretty long blonde hair and everything, but she's supposed to be like the most popular girl in school and super pretty. But I actually think Booth was prettier. But anyway,
I wouldn't say that Booth was prettier, but I thought they were the same to me. So I think it was just that Scott Howard just had a thing for blondes.
Yeah.
And I think that was all it was, because the only thing that Pamela Wells had going for her was that she had blonde hair.
And it was pretty. She did have pretty hair. She had like long, pretty blonde hair, but yeah.
Right.
Next we have James Mackrell, who played vice principal. Oh, he was the vice principal? I thought he was the principal. At any rate, Rusty Thorne. Great character. And he was also in Gremlins, The Howling, Annie Hall. Yeah.
So yeah, I was with you. I think it was only like halfway through the movie that he identified himself as the vice principal.
I missed that.
Yeah, because it was kind of weird that it was like, why is the principal hounding this kid? But they explain it like later on in the movie, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, later on he was like he was the vice principal. I was like, why is the vice principal so ornery?
Yeah,
it's like, has he nothing else to do?
He did play a good role, and it's kind of one of those tropes in these 80s movies. There always has to be like the big bad principal guy.
Yes,
in all
as a
these
matter
movies.
of fact, almost every movie they had a big bad principal. So it was him. It was another Back to the Future. You had the mean principal. Was that
Breakfast
the principal?
Club?
I think he was.
There was the Breakfast Club principal.
Right.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's probably one of the most famous. Like.
Right.
That principal.
And then there was the real life principal. Oh God, what is the name of this movie? I'm forgetting all of the movies. It's a movie that I covered on the show. So it was based on a true event.
Oh.
And it was about the East Side High School. It had, let's see if I can remember his name. Nope, can't remember his name right now. So, so anyway, it's about a true life about a high school in Eastern United States. I think it was New Jersey or something like that. And it was a principal that basically had reformed his high school, but he was harsh. And he was
was it Morgan Freeman that played him?
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, Lean on Me?
Yes, Lean on Me. Thank you for remembering that for
a
me.
good movie. Oh, and Morgan Freeman. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's probably one of his earlier. He wasn't super famous yet, maybe. But yeah. Great movie.
Well, he was famous enough to get a starring role, and that was a fabulous movie, but it was definitely earlier in his career.
Mm-hmm.
So moving right along, we have Mark Arnold. He played Mick McAllister. He was in Blade Runner 2049, Angel Has Fallen, and Florence Foster Jenkins. And yeah, it sounds like a great filmography.
He was a great character, but one of the funniest things, and I remember even as a kid watching this, but when I rewatched it last night, I'm like, dude is like 35. He's playing a high school kid. I mean, it's just like, that's just a thing that happens also at this time, which is hilarious.
Right. More trivia on the ages of these so-called kids.
Oh, God. Yeah. But he's like a grown-ass man. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's another thing that's kind of funny is that it always seems to happen this way. Like when you see a movie that actually has teenagers, it's almost like a sea change. It's like, oh, that's what kids are supposed to look like. And when we were younger, we took them as kids. It's like, they look like kids to us, so that's kind of weird too.
Yeah.
Also, Michael J. Fox just looked like a kid for a long time.
Yes, and he's really small in stature too. But yeah, he has that like ever youthful face. Yeah,
absolutely.
So the coach, one of my favorite characters in this movie, Coach Finstock, is played by Jay Tarsis, and he was in Open All Night, The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. And then he was the creator of Buffalo Bill. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So he actually created both of those shows and all of these shows. So there's a show called Open All Night and a show called The Days and Nights of Molly Dodd. And he's mainly a writer. So he created these shows and he created a show called Buffalo Bill. And if he's not creating these shows, then he's writing on shows. So if you look at his IMDb, it's mostly his writing credits.
Okay, cool.
That is put forward. And he's written I believe he's written a few movies or written on a few movies that you might be familiar with. But because I wanted to focus on his acting credits, I just put that there. But yeah, he was so funny in this movie, right? So
one of the highlights for me.
Yeah.
Coach, he just doesn't give a F. I don't know if we can curse on here, but yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we can curse in the podcast. So if you have to, let your freak flag fly.
I'll try not to, but I do sometimes. It just
I don't do a lot of profanity on the show, but I will when it's appropriate.
Okay.
So
that's fair. So do we want to talk about the director now?
Yes, go ahead.
It's Rod Daniel, which didn't sound familiar to me, but he also directed Beethoven's Second, K-9, and The Super. I don't know what The Super is, but so he's kind of got a little niche going on there, it seems.
Right. So I recognize Beethoven's Second. I don't know if he did the first one. I'm familiar with K-9. I may have watched it, but I'm not sure. I know that there were like 2 cop dog movies. So there was K-9 and there was Turner and Hooch, and there was probably a couple of other ones.
Oh, Turner and Hooch was great. I loved that. Also, I really like A Dog Day Bordeaux. I like a big dog, so.
Right. So yeah, I guess he has a thing with dogs. I think The Super is with Danny DeVito. I can't remember.
Oh, well, that might be good.
I might be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm letting the audience know right now. Sometimes I'll put a correction on Facebook, or no, not Facebook. I'll put it on Twitter because I'm rarely on Facebook for some reason. But I guess because it's just too many social media apps to keep up with.
It's like, you got to pick and choose. I'm fully with you. It's like I don't have the energy for 1, let alone 4. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, so sometimes I'll have to do that. But I'm I think that it's one with Danny DeVito.
I love Danny DeVito, so I might have to check
Yeah,
that out.
yeah. So this movie was written by Jeff Loeb. I think it's Loeb or Lowe. I'm not sure if you pronounce the B. And I should know because he is a famous comic book writer, and he's written a bunch of comic related TV shows and movies and animated series. He's a big deal in the comic book space. And
Oh,
also his writing partner, Matthew Weissman. So he takes on Weissman as a partner whenever they do film. So they've done Commando and Burglar together, but he's
cool.
mostly known for like his animated stuff.
I sadly am not. I'm not a comic book person, so I'm unfamiliar. But that's cool. Commando, I've definitely seen that.
Yes, yes, yes. Uh, there was a there was a podcast I was listening to the other day, and they were talking about their favorite movie deaths, and they mentioned Commando, and I think they mentioned this particular death, but it's definitely my favorite death in Commando. It's the memory that I carry with me throughout my entire life. So this is
Oh
first.
wow.
Let me allow you to guess which death I'm referring to.
I don't know.
Okay, so there was a
Oh,
guy named.
oh, I
Go
thought you
ahead.
were talking about from a different movie, not
No, no, from
Commando. Okay.
Commando.
No. Never mind.
Okay.
Go on.
So there is a hood named Sully. So Sully was like joking about they're kidnapping Arnold Schwarzenegger, Commando, and they're going to take him to the big boss or whatever. And then Commando says, "Ha, Sully, you're so funny. That's why I'm going to kill you last." Right. So and then they go on, and then Commando is able to escape or whatever. And remember, they have his daughter kidnapped, and he's
Yep.
trying to figure out where his daughter is. So it comes to pass that Commando holds Sully over a cliff by his leg with one arm and is, shaking him down for information of where his daughter is. And then, Sully gives up everything he knows and he's all frightened, of course, because he's hanging over a precipice. When Commando lets go, Sully is going to die. So Commando asks, Sully, you remember when I told you I would kill you last? Yeah, Matrix, you did. I lied, and he let go. And
I actually don't remember that. I it's been a very long time since I've seen that, but that does sound like a great death scene. And I can just picture Arnold, like it's no big thing for him just to hold a grown man
right,
with one
right,
arm.
right. And
Yeah.
then to put the cherry on the cake, he gets back to the car, and his co-star Ray Don Chong is in the car, and she asks, "What happened to Sully?" And Arnold says, "I let him go." It was just.
I like it. I like it. That's a good question. I haven't really put much thought into the best like death scenes.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was a particularly good episode of that particular podcast.
I like it.
If I can, I guess I'll look it up and I'll send you what the podcast I'm
Okay.
talking about
Cool.
offline. So, anyways, why don't you let us know about the music on this show?
The
On this,
music was
wait, hold on a second.
great.
On this movie.
I thought that the music was very effective. It did its job well. It was by Miles Goodman, who, a little movie called La Bamba. He also did What About Bob, Little Shop of Horrors, Blank Man, and The Squeeze. So he has like a legit resume here, this Miles Goodman, and it shows. I thought the music was great.
Yes. What I like about the music that he did for the movie, that even though it was a comedy, he kind of leaned on the tropes of the music used in horror movies, and then they included the
Yes.
pop music also in this movie, so it worked out really well. And when you look at the movies that he's worked on, you're absolutely right. I feel like he's a guy who knows what he's doing. He's exceptional at his craft.
Indeed. Indeed.
So that's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying the show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website, backlickcinema.com/shop. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah. And people are thinking, oh yeah, you haven't put up a new design in a while. And to that, I say, you're absolutely right. I'm going to get right on it after Memorial Day. I say that every episode or every other episode.
I love it. There's so much life. It's hard to keep up, man.
Yeah. Relax, folks. I'm a single worker on this podcast. I'm the main guy, so I'm doing a lot. I'm doing the work. I'm getting around to it. I promise. Sort of. Anyways.
Oh dear. Well,
Right.
I'll have to check it out, and I will hold you to putting a new design up soon.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll need now. I have a reason to be accountable.
Yes.
So let me go ahead and play this ad. Hopefully I can press the right button because I forgot where I put it at. Maybe it's this button. Friends, there's a beverage coming over the horizons that's going to give you that sweet full body taste you've always wanted. It's got that caffeine that'll put a pep in your step. It's got that flavor that'll make your mouth go pop. It's got that sweetness that'll make you forego all other refreshments. That's right, folks. We're talking about Nuka-Cola that's being developed in our labs right now. Our focus groups have determined that Nuka-Cola is the greatest soft drink ever developed, and with an excessive amount of caffeine and 120% the recommended daily amount of sugar, Nuka-Cola is guaranteed to keep you awake for your late-night gaming sessions. This amazingly delicious and refreshing drink, whether served ice cold, lukewarm, or hot out of the microwave, is perfect for those overnight drives from New York City to Denver, Colorado. Nuka-Cola will go perfectly with everything from medium steak and potatoes to cheesecake and popcorn. It's great for all occasions, from bar mitzvahs to funerals. It's yummy for all ages, from premature babies to your 101-year-old grandma. That's right, folks. Nuka-Cola is on its way, and it's the greatest soft drink that you'll ever try. Nuka-Cola. It just tastes good. Yes, folks, go out and get you some Nuka-Cola if you can. Most folks, I know you're not familiar with video games, but that is a product from a very popular video game series, and so not much chance that you're going to find it in the real world. Although I have heard of this recipe book where you can make your own version of Nuka-Cola.
Oh, that sounds dangerous, actually.
Yeah. Some exotic ingredients that go into Nuka-Cola.
I love it. So I like the accent on that guy too. Like a very specific place in England, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. I looked at a lot of Doctor Who back when I was growing up. So that's my best English accent.
I like it. That's pretty good, actually. I feel like I've seen movies of like a specific town or region. Yeah, I like it. Nicely done.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're at the opening. Oh, no, not the opening credits. We're at our favorite parts. We're going to talk about our favorite parts. I've only been doing this podcast for a little while. You would think that I know what my segments are.
Yeah, over 100, right? You're over 100 episodes. Is that right?
Yeah, over 100 episodes. This is the 119th episode.
Awesome.
And what you call it? I have the segment written right in front of me in big blue letters, and yet I'll mess it up. So anyways, we are at our favorite parts. Katie, why don't you do us the honor of letting us know what one of your favorite parts of Teen Wolf is?
It's hard to select like a favorite part, but I gotta say, rewatching it.
We're doing multiple favorite parts.
Okay, good. Well, one is the party and Styles acting as like the MC, like the party games. Like it just made teenage life, high school in the 80s look like the raddest time ever. I loved the party scene. That was one of my favorite parts.
Yes, I rarely do I go to a party that is like that. It's like a staple of like teen dramas to have such a scene, and I've rarely been to like a party like that. And then if I do go to a party like that, I'm the wallflower. I'm not.
Well, I actually thought it looked somewhat realistic. Like I think they did a good job of just like how the people were acting, how crowded it was, everybody,
Right.
But the thing that wouldn't go today is like the forced sexual situations. Like the games were very like forced sexual things, which I don't think that would be in a movie now, but it seemed innocent enough.
It wouldn't be in a movie now, but I think that those were the type of things that were happening back then, right? So,
Yes.
and it's kind of like an advanced version of Spin the Bottle, which
Yeah,
I hear is very
exactly.
popular back in the day.
Back like, yeah, also the tangentially related to the party is them trying to get beer. Like underage kids trying to get beer for the party. I thought that was fun too.
Yes,
Um,
that was so cool. That's such a also another nice or well done trope from their
yep.
perspective, especially when they kind of flipped it with when Marty went to get the wolf, and that's also one of my favorite parts to segue into that when
Okay.
because I so remember that. That's one of the most impactful moments for me from this movie. So it's one of when he's going into like when he's talking to Styles. Styles says, "Why don't you take this whatchamacallit, this fake gun and try to pretend like you're going to rob the store of its beer and then pay for it so it's not stealing." and, and then you know, Michael J. Fox's character is like, I'm just gonna go and ask him for beer, right? He's just gonna. It's very naive to think that he could just ask to do for beer. And the funny thing is about like Michael J. Fox is in his 20s, so he's actually old enough, but because of the way carding works, just because you even if you look like you're old enough, you still have to be carded. So he still has to present a card. So it doesn't matter what
But
he
he
looks like.
doesn't be like, as to your point earlier, Michael J. Fox really could pass as a high school kid. So
Right.
he
He
looked,
definitely could.
Styles was probably like late 20s or something. So like Styles, if anything, could possibly, because I don't know how. So this little liquor store owner was very strict about carding, but I don't know if that was
Right.
really, I don't know. In 1985, I don't know how strict a lot of places were, but yeah, the cherry on top was he turns sort of wolf-like with his eyes turning red and
Right.
scares the shit out of the shop owner. He's like, "Okay,
Right.
here you go."
What I really liked what I really liked about it is that even at the very beginning of the movie, they're showing he's showing signs of uh I meant to look up this word like campotropy. No, that's not how you say it. He's
Oh,
he's showing signs of werewolfness. We'll
like the
just use that word.
long hair on
'Cause
his chest and stuff like
yeah,
that.
the hair
Yeah.
on his chest and whatnot, and he's growling in a it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's almost like a weird form of puberty. So he
Mm.
goes into the liquor store and then his eyes start to glow and then you hear his growl and he says, "I want a keg of beer." And then the guy gets scared and gives him the beer and then he picks up this like bag of Skittles or whatever it is and he
Oh
says,
yeah, some candy or donuts or something,
"Right.
snowballs.
Right. And these in his regular voice, trying to be the same amount of threatening. Right.
Yes. And then we cut to Styles in his convertible car with the passenger as the keg of beer is just like
Right.
out open. And then they show up to the party because they think they really need this keg of beer for the party, or there's not going to be any fun times at the party. And then there's like a whole stack of
Right.
keg.
Right. That was a great subversion because Styles really thought that he was doing a do. Like he was the main guy bringing the keg, and it's like the party doesn't happen without him. And
Hmm.
as it turns out, he's just a cog in the machine. He's just
Indeed.
one. He's not that special. I also like the opening credits how it was leaning on the werewolf drama. Like if you didn't see any of the trailers going into this movie, you thought you was going to watch like a legitimate horror movie. Like it starts dark, starts off dark. It has like a black background with white text, like as you're going through the credits, and then the first scene is like the glowing light, and everything else is kind of blurry. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
that's pretty good opening, and then you see Marty's face, and then you realize it's not which it's not going to be a serious horror movie. After it's like you think that maybe he's confronting something, but he's just playing a game of basketball.
That's true. That is a good opening. The basketball. Oh my god, I just found it on that line of thinking. I found the basketball hilarious. So the team is super bad. Like Michael J. Fox as a basketball. Like if he's on the basketball team, and then Chubbs, like who also is like a grown ass man playing a high school kid, but just this he's like eating while they're playing. The coach is trying
Right.
to forfeit. He doesn't. It's hilarious. I just found it hilarious. I liked it. It was a
Right, right,
good.
right. It's like the coach is Jay Tarsis playing Coach Finlock is awesome. He's like, why are we doing this? Why are we playing this anyway? Why don't we just forfeit? It's already a foregone conclusion. It's like they were losing. It was like 27-7 or something like that. It's
And then
like,
the other coach is like, no, we're not forfeiting. My guys have to get their records, the scoring
right,
records
right,
and
right.
whatnot.
It was
Yeah. Yeah.
like, come on, coach. It's like, this isn't a real game. What are you doing?
Oh, the
So that's
basketball
funny.
was funny. Yeah, and Mick, who plays on the other team, like again, like they do even actually kind of address the fact that he's older by saying he's like 20 in the movie. They say he's like 20 because he had to take a timeout to go to prison or something.
Oh, I
Yeah.
missed that part.
But the basketball, the coach is one of my favorite parts, as is Styles. So those two characters, the coach, he's eating, the way he smacks his gum, the way that like Scotty comes to him with a real problem, and he's just not trying to be helpful at all with his stories. And then they do end up getting to the championship at the end because, spoiler alert, the wolf is awesome at things. And
Right.
but then he says at some point, the coach is like, it's not how you play the game, it's whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
So I quite enjoyed the coach. And then Styles and his style, like his outfits were great. And just the character, those two characters were a high point for me.
I definitely want to talk about Styles' outfits later on. They were hilarious. And then as far as the coach goes, I liked how, like, the first meeting between Marty and the coach is like, because Marty wants to tell the coach that he wants to quit the team. And because Marty, it's already a bad team, but Marty is one of the best players on the team. He's a first stringer, but he's like also one of the shortest members. So he's really good and he's really short. And I really like how the Fox basically plays against type, like in Family Ties. It's like you never mistake him for an athlete. He's really business minded. He's a straight A student, and in this movie, he's kind of the opposite. Like he's still a good student, but at the same time, he's athletic, and he is like he wants to be like Michael P. Keaton in Family Ties, but he's not. But it was so I love the way that part was played. But so in the first meeting, the coach is like, yeah, come on in. Mi casa is tu casa. Just come on and tell me all your problems. And then as soon as Scotty starts to say anything, it's like, I'm kind of a busy man. I don't know if I could, talk to you about all of this stuff.
Yeah, he has zero F's to give, but he's just the way the coach plays it is brilliant too. He's very cash. And he says all the words like in the wrong way. I don't know.
Yeah.
The coach is great.
Yeah. His philosophy is totally out there. So what's one of your other favorite parts that you can think of?
Yeah, I do really kind of, I guess iconic for the movie is the van surfing with the Beach Boys song. Great.
Right.
So fun. What did you think about that?
Wolfmobile.
Later, Styles later gets a different van because originally they're on like the hardware store van.
Right.
The Howards have a
work van.
Yeah. The dad owns a hardware store. Yeah. So,
right.
But then later in the movie, Styles trades his convertible car is for this Wolfmobile van. And so there's a few different surfing on the top of a van scene, which I didn't know was a thing, but I thought that was the coolest thing ever when I was a kid watching this.
Right. Yeah. So in the first scene, it's Styles is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the funny parts is like when you have Scotty driving the van, Styles on top of the van, like doing the surfing thing. And then while Scotty is driving, he notices that his ears are going really sharp. Like he's getting pointy ears. And he's trying to drive and figure out where these pointy ears are coming from. and he's jerking the van around, giving Styles a hard time staying on the top of the van.
Yeah, good
So that was
times.
really funny.
What about what do you have? Did we not cover any of the other some of your favorite? Like, do you have any other high points for
Well,
you?
let's talk about the best moment in the movie. So at least was for me.
Okay.
So this is when it's a full moon and Scotty's fully transforming to werewolf. He goes into the bathroom, he locks himself into the bathroom, and he's trying to stop the change, but it is not stopping. And it's like he's got these weird fingernails, these hairs growing all over the place. His ears are elongated, his whole facial structure is changing, and he's screaming. And then his dad comes and he's like, Scott, whatever you're going through, we could talk about it. He's like, no, Dad,
Like,
no,
Dad,
there's nothing. We can't talk about this.
I'm pretty sure no. That
Right.
Michael J. Fox does a brilliant job reacting to like
Yes.
what is happening, and then the door opens and it's right. Are you gonna get
Right. Because it's like then he does the thing. The father does the thing like, you open this door right now. It's like, you open it right now, Mister. And so it's like, okay, Dad. All right, I'm more. You asked for it, right? And he opens the door, and his father is fully transformed to a werewolf. And that was so awesome. That was one of the most unexpected moments in all of movies. That was so awesome to see that.
That's a really good point. It was it really is one of the best parts of that movie, one of the greatest scenes of that movie. What I love is that the dad, so now it's like, okay, the whole family. So then they have a discussion about, oh, I was hoping it would skip a generation, but the dad wolfed out is he's all gray,
Right,
which I thought
right.
was hilarious because the dad is actually probably like not even 40 yet. Like he's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, he's not actually old.
Right. I think his fur is gray because his regular hair is like brown.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just that when he wolfs out, it comes out as gray.
Gray.
But
I
and
guess I
he's all
took
like,
it as he's older. So, but you're probably
right,
right. He's just a different color of
right.
wolf. Like his fur
And
is.
right. And the other thing is, he had his glasses on, he's all calm. And and Scotty is like, you knew about this? You knew about this the whole time? And you didn't tell me? And that's when the father mentions that, maybe it'll skip a generation, right? So yeah.
And then to your point about him being calm and that this is just, it's really a high school movie with like the layer on top of the werewolf thing. And
Yes.
that's not even really, it's really like the family dynamics. So Scott's like, I don't want to talk about this, Dad. And so the dad just is like, okay, then, and calmly walks downstairs. Like, no big deal. We're just werewolves. It's just a thing.
Right. Well, I think the other thing is that this is something that his father had to go through. Like he had to go through the exact same thing. So he understands everything Scott is experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably had the same reaction to his father or his mother when he first wolfed out or whatever. And maybe they told him what was going to happen, and maybe his parents didn't tell him. Maybe they withheld it the same reason he withheld it from his son. So yeah, or maybe his parents didn't get it. Maybe it was something from his grandfather,
Yeah.
and his parents came out normal, or his grandmother, which is why he mentioned that sometimes it skips a generation. Yeah. And he said, but it didn't skip you, right?
He's like, guess not. Now, what happened to the mom? Did I miss it? Do they ever say she's passed away, right?
Right.
But they don't go beyond
right.
that.
They don't actually mention why she's not in the picture.
Yeah.
So it's assumed that she's passed away, or it's just, you get the more of a feeling that they pass away than they get a divorce.
Yeah.
Because normally in a divorce, the mother tends to keep the child.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I think there's a picture of the whole family together, or maybe it's just a picture of him and his father. I'm not exactly certain, but they never address it in the movie.
Yeah.
But in like the backstory, I think they mention in the trivia what happened to his mother.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the other thing, I just thought of this. Remember when I mentioned that maybe it skipped his grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so his great grandparents had it. His grandparents didn't have it, and then his father had it. So his father assumed that maybe Scott wouldn't have it.
Right.
So he wouldn't have to explain everything. And somehow, well, I think maybe by the time, you're an older wolf, you can more control how you transform, or maybe he's just never around when there's a Scott when there's a full moon. Maybe that's it. Because
Well, or it only comes out like I guess he's already gone through puberty, but it must be like the wolf part only comes out at a certain point in your life, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. But but that I think that's why it's never like they're able to hide it better from Scott because his grandparents weren't werewolf. I'm guessing. I don't know if his grandparents were werewolves or not,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're better able to hide it from Scott because his grandparents weren't werewolf, but his father is, and his father knows how to hide it better. But now he's a werewolf, and now he's all excited, but and rightfully so.
Well, and he to your point about it probably takes time and maturity to figure out how to control it.
Right.
And so then the dad says, so somehow this werewolfiness makes you like an amazing basketball player. It makes you really popular, like makes you attractive somehow. So now he's like the big man on campus. But the dad tells him with great power comes great responsibility, which I did take note of when I heard that. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting, like famous line that I wouldn't have expected in Teen Wolf.
Right. And that comes from Jeff Loeb because he's, like I said, it's comic book writer, so he basically got that from Spider-Man.
Good call.
So this movie is kind of analogous to superhero movies like Spider-Man, where it's a teenager becoming a hero. But obviously, the Teen Wolf is not a superhero, and it's funny because they call him Teen Wolf throughout the film when he's all in his wolf persona, and he doesn't want to come out. It's funny, right? Because it has a scene with Styles. They're in a garage, and Scott wants to tell Styles about what he's learned about himself, and Styles like, "Are you going to tell me that you're gay? Because if you tell me that, I don't know if I can handle that."
I took note of that scene too. Well, he doesn't even he uses the F word,
right,
very casually. Like that's an acceptable thing to say in 1985.
Right, and that's because it was people didn't care about certain marginalized groups back in those days. And so now that we're more informed, and when you know better, you do better. So obviously it probably wouldn't play out exactly the same way if they remade it. Well, they did remake it, but I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I took note of that too, because the way Styles reacts is that apparently to Styles, his friend being gay is like the worst thing ever. Like, so he's like relieved when he finds out the secret he has is that he's a werewolf.
Right.
So well, interesting.
Maybe not the worst thing, but he says he wouldn't know how to handle it because this is like, it definitely be a sea change in their relationship. And Styles' persona depends on him being the most popular person. Mm-hmm. So he's concerned, like, I don't think that he would cut off his friendships with Scott if Scott turned out to be gay, but he would be concerned about how it affected his status among his peers.
Good point. I was just more a commentary on how that kind of a conversation with a friend in 1985 would be very different than versus now. Yeah.
Right. And you gotta admit, it is something like, I think nowadays it'd be like somebody comes out and they say, yeah, we knew you were gay all along. They did that in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and that was a funny moment, the way that had happened.
Yeah.
But but that's happening a lot when people can see it early and they can acknowledge it and they can be supportive in a way that probably wasn't attainable back in 1985 in the 80s. But what's fundamental about that is that it was a kind of coming out for Scott. He was coming out, like if he was going to come out to anybody, the first person he thought of was Styles. So he's basically coming out to Styles. He didn't want to come out to Booth. Right. He didn't want to come out to Booth, but he came out to Styles. So that's because Styles is his closest friend, and probably because Styles is a male, and it's easier for him to talk to men than it is to talk to women. So I think that has something to do with it.
Agreed. Well, and then Styles and his personality, he's like, how can I capitalize on this? Like immediately. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Right. And then it wasn't even up to Styles. It's like, so now now Scott is playing basketball and he's being dogpiled, and he just changes to a wolf. It's like because he's so stressed out, because that has something to do with it. He doesn't. He's
Anger,
not always
right? It's like
control.
that's an emotion that brings the wolf out.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. He hulks out in popular vernacular.
Yes, good way of putting it. That scene was actually talking about great scenes. That's kind of a pivotal scene in the movie too. Now everybody is like, I just love the ridiculous nature of things in the 80s. And the movie is so he becomes a wolf in the middle of a basketball game. And there's like maybe a moment where everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? And then that's it. It just, the game continues and everybody's cool
Right,
with it.
right, right.
And especially because he's awesome now.
Right,
Like he's a really
right,
good basketball player. And the music, I loved the song that they play, like that montage. I
right,
even wrote
right,
it down.
right,
What was it called? You Got to Go with the Flow, Joe. It's
right.
not like a well-known song, but if you rewatch this movie, I guarantee you it hits that nostalgic note too. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, yeah, when you pointed out that how the crowds are just staring at him, and he's like he doesn't know what to do either. So he's just kind of staring at the crowd, just bouncing the ball, and then finally goes up for a basket, and the coach is like, "All right, I guess we're just gonna play then."
Yeah, good point. The coach is great. Yeah. But it's a montage. Me, since I'm a Rocky person, montages are big for me. So there were a
Right,
couple montages in this movie that were great, set to really fun songs. So
right. Yeah, absolutely. The montages were expertly done in this movie. And to your point of, does make being a werewolf make you a better basketball player? I don't necessarily think that it makes you better. It just makes you stronger and faster. So it's
okay.
already implied that Howard or Scott is already a really good basketball player. So just being a werewolf just makes him, it just enhances what he's already good at, right? So if he was and as far as being faster and stronger, so it doesn't make him smarter, but if like he was a runner, then being a werewolf would make him run faster, and he would win all the track meets where he
Got
wasn't
it.
winning the track meets
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Probably enhances his endurance so he can last longer in the basketball court. In part of the montages, he he's playing the game by himself, right? He's just like the other people are just angry at him because he goes from being a team player to being a selfish player, and now he's
Mhm.
just he gets to the point where he doesn't want to play with anybody else. He's so good at playing basketball that he can play an entire team by himself, and now his teammates are kind of mad at him because he's not sharing. He's not part of the team anymore. He's not sharing the game.
Good. Yes, I did take note of. So at first they're like, "Sweet, now we're winning, awesome," because they're a terrible basketball team. Like that's made known.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and now they're like, going to the championship. But then they're like, "Yeah, well, I mean, doesn't matter if we're going to the championship if we don't even get to play." So the teammates do. So we see him being the big man on campus, and he's got all this confidence now, which makes him popular. And so everybody's like, "The wolf is awesome." But not everybody's in love with the wolf. Like the team starts to turn, and Boof was never into it. Because she likes the underlying message here, right? Is that Boof, who actually really likes him. That's another trope that's in this movie.
Right,
That a
right,
lot of so like the best friend who really likes him for who he is, but he doesn't see the best friend who's actually a good probably match for him, but he's
right,
really into this one-dimensional popular girl for some reason. That's in every
right,
80s movie, but it's in this one too. So Boof likes Scotty for who he is. And so she doesn't love the wolf, nor does Lewis, the other friend who's
right,
like scared of him or something. So
right,
we start to see not everybody loves the wolf, and then the principal also. And there's some history there that we find out about.
right, right. Yeah, that was the thing. That so the reason that the principal's always hounding him is because he knows the family secret, because he had a confrontation with Scott's father, and they were arguing over Scott's mother. So, and Scott's father had won his mother from the principal. So, and that's all the underlying history. So
Like they went to
That
high school. Did you assume that it was that they were in high school together?
right,
Yeah.
right. I was pretty sure that they went to that same high school,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they were classmates, and they were basically competing over this girl. And Scott's father won the girl, and the
Mhm.
principal or the vice principal has been angry at the father ever since, and harbored it against. And that's so weird to be that hung up over. But I think it was because, you know, so Scott's father, what's his name? I keep calling him Scott's father, Harold.
Yeah,
So Harold,
Mr. Howard, yes.
yeah, Mr. Howard. He made the Rusty. Like you find out his name is Rusty later on. He
Mhm.
made Rusty pee his pants. So I guess embarrassing him in front of the girl, that's something that it's probably going to live with you. If he
Oh,
had just
yeah.
taken the girl, it's one thing, but you embarrassed him in front of the girl, made him pee his pants and all this kind of stuff, then yeah, that's going to leave a mark, and he's like mad forever. So and now he's taking it out on uh on Scott, and Scott is not really doing anything overtly, um anything that would arouse suspicion or cause the vice principal to think that he's a bad teenager or whatever, but he's going to hound him anyway. He's like a bad cop, right?
Yes. Take it out on him. Yeah. And then there's a great payoff. The last scene, the dad kind of steps in and takes charge and
Right, right,
makes him pee
right,
his
right,
pants again. I love it.
right.
Yeah.
He said, and then when he does it, Mr. Howard says, "I can always count on you, Rusty."
It's good. The dad is, yeah, I gotta say, I think all the actors do a great job in this movie. I think they're all playing their characters really well. I also noticed I was actually kind of impressed with the effects. This is 1985. I thought it looked pretty good. Like the
Yes, yes,
werewolfiness. What did
yeah.
you
The
think? Is it
makeup,
just me?
no, the makeup for the werewolf was outstanding. The change effects were really good, and they hold up pretty well. And what I liked about it, I just watched Masters of the Universe with my friends over at Not a Bomb Podcast,
The
and
old one, Dolph Lundgren one?
yes, the Dolph
Oh,
Lundgren
yeah,
one,
okay.
and that
Love Dolph Lundgren.
and so basically, I decided that I still don't like that movie for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is like the makeup was just horrible. Like the lips didn't match up. Like the lips on the prosthetic characters didn't match up with the lips of the actors. So
Okay.
the lips of the characters were just kind of flapping around. And,
Oh, I've only seen it once, so I can't really
right,
recall what you're referring to, but good
right.
comparison because that was probably around the same time-ish.
Yeah, it was around the same time, probably later, but it had a much smaller budget, and the that movie did so bad that it bankrupted the studio. Canon was the studio for that movie, so
Oh, of
yeah, it
course
was.
it was. Well, there were
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of movies, I don't know, that could have bankrupted canon, but yes.
yeah, absolutely. It was that movie and Superman 4, and they just did a Superman 4 episode. So
Oh,
yeah, it was,
fun.
yeah, all bad. So, anyways,
Yeah, I
um,
was really impressed actually with the makeup and the effects of it.
yeah, all of that was really good, and I enjoyed it. Although some people would say he looks more like an ape man than a wolf man, but
Yeah.
I always I always took him as a wolf. I never got him confused with any other creature or a wolf man. And they're all different takes on the type of wolf man. Lately, what we see in movies are creatures that look more like wolves, especially like in um I can't remember. Well, in some of the later movies, they're more wolf-like than anything, or they just transform into wolves. But in the earlier days, in the Lon Chaney days, they kind of look more like men that were just slightly hairier, and I think that was the look that Teen Wolf was going for,
Yep.
like slightly more werewolfish, but still managed, because you're going to get an ape-looking creature when you do that. But what was
Yeah,
the
I
other thing?
agree. I agree with you on all of those fronts.
Right,
Just like an ape man with the ears, but the ears, the teeth, the nails. But yeah, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
right.
Yeah.
So there was a movie that was actually it was referred to as a television special by Marvel and Disney Plus, and it was called Werewolf by Night. And what I liked about that show is that it kind of went back to that Lon Chaney uh, aesthetic, because the character that it's based on is a werewolf, and when they created the character, they really wanted to they used the Lon Chaney style as their template. So that's what the werewolf looks like. And that's what they brought to the series. And I was surprised to see that. I was like, oh, this is an old fashioned werewolf.
which probably made you enjoy it more, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't know if it made me enjoy it more, but I was definitely pleasantly surprised to see them use an old fashioned, design for the werewolf instead of the more modern takes on what werewolves look like in the newer movies. So if you haven't seen Werewolf by Night, I highly encourage you. It was super entertaining.
I haven't. This isn't usually my genre. I mean, this is a teen film. That's why I love it. It brings back a lot of memories, but like fantasy, generally speaking, is not my jam, but I might check it out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a fantasy, but I think that you'd like that one.
Okay. I'll have to check it out then.
So oh my goodness, I hope you can't hear that. That's my stomach growling.
I cannot. So your secret is
that's awesome because it's super loud. I was like, why is it so loud? I'm not even really hungry. It's just gases moving, I guess.
Yep. One thing that I noted, so I watched this yesterday.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I feel like every viewing of it has been either when it's on TV or when I was a kid, it was our VHS like taped from TV. So apparently it was always the edited version. And now my stomach's growling. But I literally kind of had to do a double take almost when there's the scene where Pamela, they get it on. And I did not even know that because I've always the edited version, I think they kiss or something, but there's no indication that they actually get it on. And so it makes more sense now because later he's like, well, what about earlier, in your dressing room? And she's like, what about it? And I always thought he was making a big deal about a kiss or something, but no.
No.
Yeah.
No, they were engaged in casual sex. They got to know each other in a carnal way.
They did. And I literally yesterday was the first time I realized that. Isn't that crazy?
Right. She had taken her top completely off. It's like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so I guess her motivation is that she wants to be the slut that can get any guy. I guess that's how she sees herself because she already has a boyfriend and she's not willing to let go of that boyfriend, but at the same time she wants to be seen as connected to the most popular kid in her high school because apparently her boyfriend goes to a different high school.
He does. I did find it a little strange. You don't usually see that in movies, especially from this time, because so they have their little time together in her dressing room because she's in the school play and somehow she has like a whole dressing room. I don't know.
Right.
And then they have like a date. They go bowling together and they're canoodling, bowling. And Mick, the boyfriend, is there being jealous about it. And so if I'm Scotty, I would think, okay, well, maybe she's my girlfriend now. But then later she says, no, Mick's still my boyfriend. It's weird. She's just doing it out in the open.
Right. He even brings it up. It's like, did you know he was going to be here? And she's like not committing to an answer, but you kind of get the feeling that she knew. And for some reason, she wants to make him her boyfriend jealous. And it just doesn't need, it doesn't feel like there's a need to do that from her perspective. Because it's not like he's looking at other women. It's like if anything, he's more possessive of her than anything. Mm-hmm. But he's just she's just weird. She's just a weird chick. I think this would have been a better movie if he left her. It was like, definitively broke up with her.
She's just fickle. And she wants to be attached to whoever the big man on campus is.
Right.
And so then, later in the movie, we see how she's so fickle in that, spoiler, they win the basketball tournament. And thankfully, so we get this nice, perfect 80s ending, sort of, where Scott realizes that Boof is the girl for him. So he pushes right past Pamela at the end of the
Right,
game
right,
to
right,
go to Booth, which is great. You're like, yeah,
right,
screw that chick. She's shitty. And then
right,
Mick comes over to her, but he just lost the game. So now
right,
she tells him to drop dead. So
right, right, right,
she's just attaching herself to whoever the winner of the day is, it
right,
seems.
right. Also, Booth is throwing herself at Scott the entire movie. It's like it's like pick me plus, right? That's what the kids say nowadays. So she was a total pick me towards Scott. And I guess it's totally appropriate because they grew up together, and she's and it's like, I guess when you're kids you don't realize you're just friends, but then
Mhm.
she has grown attached to him in a way that he has not recognized. So he still sees her as a best friend, which is
Mhm.
why he can be friends with her and at the same time lust after this other chick, right? So he doesn't,
Yes.
even when she's like throwing herself at him and kissing him in the closet, and he accidentally scratches her with his enormous wolf claws. And,
You're right. She is totally after, and I feel it seems as though everyone around them is also like the dad and was it Styles yeah, Styles.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
trying to get them together. Like it's like
right,
everyone
right,
can see that they are a good pair, except
right,
Scott's uninterested because he's so focused on this Pamela
right,
girl.
right. And finally, that he breaks the spell
He
after the
does.
final game. So one last part that you really liked.
I mean, I guess just the message. I mean, this sounds corny, but kind of the message, the underlying message that, and how it ends with, it wraps up well. They end up winning the basketball game. So he is talked into just being himself. So
Right,
everybody is like, we only want you involved in the play or whatever if you're the wolf. And so he realizes that he can get everything that he wants by being someone that he's not, but being true to himself. That, it's a good message that you can achieve things by being yourself, putting in the work, and the people who truly care about you will like you for you. And so we get that lovely message and they win the game after all when he's
right,
human.
right.
Yeah.
I I think some of the criticism is that the ending is a little too perfect. I think I would have preferred if they had lost the basketball game, because there was no reason that they should have won
No,
if he wasn't going to be the werewolf. And he gets his fans anyway. Like, he gets the people still like him in
that's
spite of the
true.
fact that they lost the game. I would have liked it if they had done
They
that,
missed
because
because he wins by 1 point with free throws because Mick
right, right,
fouls
right,
out. I guess I sort of like it because the movie is so ultimate 80s cheese in a good
right,
way. Like, and that's why I'm like, I like the perfect ending because the movie is so it clearly follows a formula, but
right,
somehow doesn't. I maybe it's just me, but to me it didn't feel formulaic.
right,
They
right,
did
right,
such a good job in other areas that the movie came together not feeling super formulaic for me. Yeah,
right. Right. Yeah, I'm never not going to like this movie. I will always love this movie. But now that I'm older, I
of
understand the
course.
criticism. I'm not going to, like, there are some people that'll point out certain flaws in the movie, and now I'll defend it to the death. But in this movie, they might point out a
Yep.
flaw, and I'll be like, all right, you right. I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally hear
I
you.
can't,
I hear you
I
on
can't
that.
defend that.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
right. But one of my last favorite parts is when the coach gives his advice. And it's like, I got three things that I live by.
Yeah.
One, I always get 12 hours of sleep.
I love that. 12,
Two,
12. Like, this
well,
is
yeah,
so coach.
12.
I love
Just
it.
amazing. 12. How can you?
I know.
I can sleep 12 hours if I tried.
In a week, maybe. Yeah.
Then he says, never play cards with the man with the first name of a city. So I'm guessing that he couldn't play cards with a man named Dallas or Phoenix
Yep.
or Washington or something like that.
Mhm.
And then he says, never date a woman with a tattooed dagger. And that's funny. That's what he lives by. Those are his principles in his life.
And that's like, I love that part too, though, because that's like right after he says it's not how you play the game, it's whether you win or lose.
Right.
It's just such a window into this coach. He
Right.
has probably the best back character. Like his character's just, there's so much to it in a funny way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's like he doesn't really care about the game all that much until his team starts winning.
Yeah.
And so when Marty comes in and wants to play by himself, as himself, not by himself, but he wants to play as himself and not as a werewolf. And he says, "You sure? You sure? You sure you don't want to change?" And Scott's like, "No." It's like, okay, then let's do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's
Whatever.
not all that emotionally invested in it. I mean, he would like to win, but if Marty wants to play as himself, he's not going to stand in his way. He's not going to throw a temper tantrum and start stomping his feet and screaming. It's like he's at the same time the worst and the best coach that you could probably have.
Agreed. He's just so chill, like with everything. I love his like, I mean, it's like a hilariously bad outlook on life, but I don't know, there's something endearing about it.
Absolutely. So you've heard some of our favorite parts of Teen Wolf. I encourage you to check it out. And I'm talking about the original, not the TV show. Watch the original from which the TV show was inspired, and maybe you will come to understand why the TV show was made in the first place, why people were inspired to do a remake of Teen Wolf. And now on our next segment, we are going to talk about the trivia. We're going to take a pause and listen to some music, and then we're going to get back with you. And we're back. We're going to talk about the trivia. The trivia comes from IMDb. Is it the best place to get trivia? Almost. It's almost there. I like it. So, Katie, start us off with the trivia.
Scott Howard, Michael J. Fox's house, was located on the same block as 1955 George McFly's and 1955 Lorraine Baines' house from Back to the Future. Do you mean like the set? Is that what they mean? The house?
Well, they used real houses. So the location of the house is on that same street as the other houses.
Where do you know where it was? I have a little I don't think it's on here, but something that I noted about one of the filming locations. I don't know.
I have no idea where it's at. I didn't dig too deep into it.
I think probably California somewhere. But there was a scene. I'm off on a tangent here, but there was a scene in the house, in the Howard kitchen, where there was like a college football schedule, like a little banner. And the reason I noticed it is because I'm from Nebraska originally, and the Nebraska Huskers are like a huge deal in Nebraska. And so I noticed that they had a Nebraska football like pendant calendar. And that made me wonder where some of this was filmed. And then I watched the entire credits, and at the very end, they thank the people of Fremont, Nebraska, which is like a tiny little town. I wonder if that's the downtown. I wonder if that's where they filmed like the downtown, where the hardware store was.
Yeah, that's probably it. It definitely looks like a quaint downtown area.
Yeah.
And normally in the trivia, if it was on set, like there are a couple of movies that take place on the same set as Back to the Future. So I'm thinking of Back to the Future and Gremlins. That was the same town. And the town is it's not a real town. It's a town that's on the Universal Studios lot. So so they basically, when you see the town one way, and then when you watch Gremlins, they just take a picture of the town from a different angle, but it's the same town.
Interesting.
So I'm pretty sure they would have noted that in the trivia. But in this case, I looked at all of the trivia that they had, and they didn't mention that. So it's probably in that Nebraska town that you mentioned, especially if they gave credit to the town at the credits of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never noticed that little, I have an eye apparently for Nebraska. I actually don't. I'm like the worst original Nebraska. Like I'm a terrible Nebraskan. I don't live there now. I don't live there now, but I'm originally from there.
Right. The entire production only took 21 days. So they filmed this entire movie in 3 weeks. So that's and they said that the entire production. So they must be talking about the pre-production, the filming, and the post-production. The entire production. So they didn't take long. This was a very quick movie.
That's insane.
Yes.
I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I guess they had a really small budget, and so they just had to, hit the ground running. But they did a good
That
job. I thought
yeah.
even the little details in like in the basketball gym, they had banners made. Like I thought the details were pretty on point too. So I'm impressed with this 21 days.
Yeah, they definitely they cranked it out. They did extremely well.
Also, Lisa Booth Marconi was based on one of the writer's high school girlfriends. That was really her name. It's a good bit of trivia because I gotta say, I've always wondered. I'm like, that's really strange, like out there, but it realistic in a good way. Like that,
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
someone's name.
Right, it felt authentic. Like it's
Yeah.
like who's Booth, right? And it sounds like it would be a childhood name that carries over into adulthood. And you could tell that because like he and Styles calls her Booth, that they've been friends for a very long time. Because not just anybody's going to call her Booth.
Good point.
And that was I really like that. It really made the movie feel authentic. And now we see that it came from a real place.
Agreed.
Susan Ursiti, who played Booth, had only made one movie before this, Zapped, 1982. Co-writers Jeff Loeb and Matthew Weissman saw her in that film, and they knew they wanted her for this role. So yeah, she put out some good work.
Wow. Additionally, when she slapped Michael J. Fox, she did it too hard at first, and Rod Daniel had to explain what a softer stage slap was. So she clearly wasn't very experienced actress, but that's interesting.
Right. Well, there are certain skills that you have to learn over time.
Yep.
Now since we're talking about this, you mentioned that you listened to the Jaws episode, and I think that you'll remember that there was an actor on Jaws that had to slap what's his name? The Jaws dude.
It was like the mother of the boy that was killed or something?
The mother of the boy that had drowned. And she slapped the sheriff, and she didn't know how to slap. And so she slapped him for real, and they had to do several takes of him.
A face slap probably would hurt too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. She did not stage slap him. She slapped Roy Schneider. Roy Schneider was slapped like several times by that woman because she also did not know how to stage slap. But here's also it should be noted that the person getting slapped has to sell the slap as well. So it's not like you can just slap a person. The pain of being like, for one thing, the person who's doing the punching has to pull their punch, and then the person being punched has to express the pain of being punched or slapped or hit or whatever. So this is a lesson that most professional wrestlers know.
I would bet. Yeah.
Perhaps some time in the ring for some actors will teach them how to do physical contact for the screen. So that's my little tangent. So moving right along. Fox disliked this film so much that he refused to return for the sequel. In an interview at the time, while Back to the Future was in production, he laminated, "Steven Spielberg's down the street making great movies, and I'm playing a werewolf."
So have you seen the sequel with Jason Bateman?
No, I have not.
I haven't either, but I hear it's like not nearly as good. So it does make sense. That's why he didn't return for the sequel. But to me, I kind of dislike when I hear these things a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of, it just irks me a little bit. Like you might feel that way, but you're kind of ruining the experience for us moviegoers if the actor themselves is like, it's a crap movie,
Right. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just did a movie, An Officer and a Gentleman, and the main actress, the main co-screen star. What do you call these people? The best supporting the
Like the
supporting
leading
actress.
actress in it,
Yeah, the leading
or
actress. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. The leading actress. I can't remember her name, but she didn't like that movie either, and she won't even acknowledge that she was in it. Like she really.
yeah,
Um,
it's weird. Like Sylvester Stallone. I'm a huge fan of his, but I don't like it when he talks about the movies because of every actor. I mean, Robert De Niro, he does some crap movies too. I mean, that's just kind of the way that it goes sometimes, and
right.
or sometimes people take paycheck movies, but just keep it to yourself. Let us
Yeah.
enjoy the
Yeah. Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. 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 Keep the illusion up.
Yes, that's a better way of putting it.
Right. Right. Right.
So Fox's double was his name is Jeff Glosser, who was a college basketball player at the time. Fox and Glosser couldn't eat solid food while in makeup. They had to eat milkshakes and soup. That's
Yeah.
interesting. It's very clear that Michael J. Fox doesn't know how to play basketball in his scenes. And then when he's the wolf, yeah, it's like, oh, it's very much a different
Yeah.
person altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. He's very good
Hmm.
at playing that. He's doing all the tricks. He's
Yep.
spinning the basketball on his fingers. He's doing no look passes. He's passing behind his back. He's doing dunks. He's doing all the things. He's
Yep.
very good when he's the wolf. So, since this movie was released after Back to the Future in Brazil, Teen Wolf received the title Garoto de Futuro, or Boy from the Future. There, even though the plot has nothing to do with time travel whatsoever.
And in a similar way, the Italian version, uh, the title is Voglia di Vincere, which translates to Desire to Win, was released in Italy shortly after Back to the Future. And so due to this, the character's name is Scott, the character's name in the movie that we know is Scott, but they changed it to Marty, the same name as Michael J. Fox's character in the Robert Zemeckis film. So
Right,
it's
right. So
capitalizing
they,
on the popularity of the original or the more popular film.
right, right, right. And here's the thing, Teen Wolf did well, so I guess it's smart
That's a
marketing on
good
their
point.
part.
That's actually a really good point.
Right, right. I mean, it wasn't a $300 million movie, but it did well for its budget and for the type of movie it was. It did extremely, especially against Back to the Future. I mean, that was just a monster. Like, how do
Yeah,
you follow that up? You can't follow
you
that up,
can't.
right?
No, those are like lightning in a bottle type
Yeah,
situations.
yeah. The only way you can follow up Back to the Future is Back to the Future Part 2, right?
Exactly.
So Loeb and Weissman interviewed several directors for the movie. They asked the directors what they thought the movie was about. Most said it was about a werewolf. Rod Daniel was the only one who said it was about a father and son. He got the job, and he's exactly right. That was great. As a matter of fact, this could have used some more father and son moments. It was great. It almost got weird that the father was playing basketball with his son's prospective girlfriend. Like, to today's eyes, that's like, I don't know. That's good. It's a little bit. It can be cringy to some people, but back in those days, totally acceptable.
Also, for me, it was helpful. I can see what you're saying that some people would look on, and we can't put today's standards on old movies, yada yada. But I have found it really endearing in that it shows us that they grew up she's basically like another daughter to him because they grew up
Right,
on the same block. So
right,
the Mr. Howard has known Boof since she was a little girl and
right,
is sort of like it's like a father figure,
right.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, Rod Daniel voiced all of the growls in the movie, which I didn't know. That's an interesting bit of trivia. And he joked, and I didn't get a nickel.
Yeah, that's really the only dig as far as special effects I would give to this movie, because it sounds more like somebody revving up a motorcycle. I've always felt that way about about Back to the Future, where the growls sounded like somebody was like tuning up a bike rather than
You're
an
right.
actual
It doesn't
growl.
sound like an actual growl, and the red eyes are not the best effect. But what? It's 1985. But yeah, the growl
Right, right,
doesn't
right.
sound like a real growl. Yeah.
Right, yeah. All the red eyes, all the glowing eyes look about the same in 1995
Yeah, good point.
or
Good point.
1985. What am I saying? Harold Howard tells Scott, with great power comes great responsibility. We talked about this earlier, which is an expression usually associated with Spider-Man. Screenwriter Jeff Loeb was also a comic book writer and wrote Spider-Man comics.
Yeah, that does make sense given the comic book writer. The project came together when Michael J. Fox accepted the lead role, and we talked about this earlier too. So he was on Family Ties, and Meredith Baxter, who plays his mom on that show, was pregnant. So that created a delay, which opened up a time in the filming of that series for him to do this movie.
Right. So that production for Family Ties probably took a couple of months off. So
it only took a couple weeks to film. So
yeah. The last 2 trimesters. So while they was taking that break, Fox could. And it was funny, right? Because what they usually do is that they'll film right up until the moment where they can't hide the pregnancy anymore, and then they'll take a break or whatever. And some shows they'll just put something in front of the woman all of the time.
It's hilarious. I actually think that's so funny. The Nanny does that when Cece's pregnant, and it's very meta because they poke fun at it in the show.
Right.
I kind of think it's funny when shows do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry Levine said that this decades later, he's still known all over the world for playing Styles. One time, a fan of the film recognized him at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. So yeah, all over the world.
That's crazy. It was really Jerry Levine on top of the van. So we were talking about the van surfing, and it was really Jerry Levine, Styles, on top of the van. It was not a stunt man. He was secured with a wire that ran through the van's roof, up his pants, and around his waist. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So up next, James Hampton, who played Mr. Howard, asked Rod Daniel for help defining his character. Remember, Rod Daniel is the director. Daniel told him he's a guy who knows how to make a casserole, right?
That's funny, but it really does kind of do the trick.
Right. He's and then you see him he's the mundane guy. He's doing his taxes. He's he's caring and supportive of Scott. It's like he always lets Scott know, even when he is angry at Scott, he's not like Scott was surfing on the van in his werewolf form. You like being a total clown when he's supposed to be working with his father at the hardware store, and how it's like, just don't let it get out of control. Don't let it get out of pocket. It's like, so he's that type of dad, and that's pretty endearing. And he knows how to make a casserole. I know how to make a cheesecake, and I just made one last night. So I'm eager to figure out.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, cheesecake by itself is not that difficult to do. And a lot of people, they do no bake cheesecake, which makes it even easier. But what I did is I followed a recipe out of this magazine that I never threw away. And in this particular recipe, it's like the cheesecake, and then you got to put the sour cream on top, and it's all this other kind of stuff. It was way more complicated than I was prepared for that night. I was like, oh my God, I have to stay up way later than what I'm supposed to. So I didn't finish.
Is it for something? Like, do you have an event to go to that you're supposed to bring dessert, or is this for your own enjoyment?
No, it's for an event. My family is doing a little party for Memorial Day. So
fun.
And this is a segment of the family that don't know that I can cook. So, or I have an affinity for it. I don't want to say that I'm some great cook, but I know how to follow directions. Let's put it that way. So
that's so funny. I've always said, so I am like kind of the opposite. In that, yes, I can read, therefore I can follow directions and make something from a recipe. But to your point about it being more complicated, I am so not domestic at all. And anytime somebody's like, oh, I'll compliment them on something that they made, and they say, oh, it's so easy. You just do this and this. And then I'm like, after 2 steps, you've lost me.
Right. Yeah. See,
I'm very simple with, I don't have that gene for domestic things. Like, I'm not a good.
Right.
Yeah.
It was kind of challenging because it's like every time I've made it, there's always been something that I messed up on, because even though I think that I can follow directions, I'm reading the recipe over and over again, just constantly reading it.
Yes.
It's like, because I'm afraid that, like, I'll look at it and it just says like 1/2 teaspoon of sugar or whatever. So I get the one, and then I'll go turn away from the recipe, and then immediately I'm like, so how much sugar did I need? I go back to the recipe. It's 1/2 teaspoon. I go back. I forget immediately. So that's like, technically I know how to follow directions, but do I really? Right?
And that's why I concoct all the time, because I just throw stuff in.
Right.
But you can't really do that with baking. And I guess I'm too lazy. I'm like, oh, it's good enough,
Right.
like
What I'm
cup-ish of
right.
whatever.
What I'm learning is baking is very specific. Like, if it's something, if
Yes.
you're frying or boiling or something like that, you can be rather, inspired with it. You can do whatever.
Basting requires precision,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So I mean, not in as much as like adding too much of one thing or not enough of another, but as a matter of how long you bake something. Like with cookies, uh
Mm.
you can bake something, a cookie, for too long and it's too crunchy, or it becomes crunchy over time where you not break it enough and it's too soft and gooey. It's like, it's all of these things. So yeah, it's a big deal. So
You're making me hungry, so I have to move on.
right, my bad, my bad.
Uh,
So
so no, I like a tangent.
right.
So Styles, played by Jerry Levine, wears here's where we would talk about his
Yeah.
outfits. He wears numerous humorous t-shirts in the movie. They appear in the following order. 1, a yellow shirt that says "Life sucks, then you die," and I do recall that being like the first shirt he wears. 2, blue. It's a blue shirt that says "Obnoxious," the movie. I remember that one. The third one is a black shirt that says, "What are you looking at, Dick Nose?" I don't even remember that, but I like that phrase. And then the fourth one, a gray Drunken State Florida shirt. The fifth one is a white shirt that says "Wolf Buddy" on it. And of all the shirts he wears, only 2 of them appear to not have text on them.
Right.
Also, I noticed his pants. He has very like colorful. It's not just jeans, but he has like colorful pants that he wears. It's a good character, this Styles.
Right.
He's got some fashion.
And it should be noticed that Styles has his own style, but his name is not spelled like Style. It's Stiles, Styles. So that's his real name, but it seems like that also informs his character. So and I it's funny because as many times that I've watched this movie, I never realized or never read his t-shirts. It's only when watching this particular viewing that I started reading his t-shirts, because now I'm like looking at more details nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I
Yeah.
first noticed that "Life sucks and then you die." And then I noticed the other I saw when he wore the obnoxious t-shirt, but I didn't realize it said "Obnoxious" the movie. And then the last one I noticed when he was in the classroom, he was wearing the Dick Nose t-shirt. So those are
That's
so
funny.
funny. So yeah, and that was actually impressive. It was like that'd be a t-shirt that I'd like to wear.
They are funny. And to your point about, there are so many things, just given that you have a podcast about old movies, and so you rewatch them with a different lens, you notice so many things, right, that you didn't notice watching a movie however many times you've previously seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, according to Rod Daniel, when test audiences first saw Scott's dad as a werewolf, they went insane. He said the laughter was so loud it obliterated the next minute of the film. Like, yeah, that, like I said, I feel like that's the best part.
Well, clearly the audience thought so too. That's funny.
Yeah.
Those are good tidbits. I like it.
Yeah, those were really, I like it when movies have some behind the scenes stories. A lot of them, they have like fights between the director and the producer and the actor, and some of them have like where sets burned down. This one just has some really nice quirky things that happened in it. So, and only one person hating the movie.
only one person that was outwardly vocal about it.
Right,
Yeah,
right, right.
yeah.
So anyway, that's it for the trivia. And up next, we're going to talk about what the critics thought. And we're back. We're going to talk about what the critics thought of Teen Wolf. So the critics gave it a 42%, and the audience has it at a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. So not very popular. On IMDb reviews, it has a 6.1 out of 10. So yeah, again.
That's pretty decent. 6.2 out of 10 is pretty decent.
Right.
Right?
It's comparable somewhat to the Rotten Tomatoes score. And I noticed that, especially on IMDb reviews, it tends to be lower than the scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but this one it's notably higher. So that's a very interesting difference.
It is interesting. Dwayne Burge from The Hollywood Reporter, to his credit, this is what he says about the movie. He says, to his credit, director Rod Daniel has crafted an amiable teen film and gets a pleasing performance from Fox in the title role. Yet, Teen Wolf, especially in the basketball sequences, loses its dramatic dribble. I don't think I agree, but I'm not a movie critic.
You don't have to be a movie critic. You can have opinions. Yeah. You don't have to agree with them.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the basketball sequences. Yeah. Did you?
I liked the one when he's the wolf and he's, showing off and all this kind of stuff. And then I like where it builds a story where he's playing the game by himself and then the teammates are just like not involved in the game and they're kind of pissed at him. So those work well. Yeah. The only thing that where it could have been more dramatic, I think I mentioned earlier, is at the end of the film where they probably should have lost that game. That's all I'm saying. Or if another way of doing it is you show the team improving because of his involvement. So maybe there's something that he's doing that the rest of the team is able to improve. And then, but in the process of them improving, they get shut out because he's being selfish with the basketball. He's not sharing the game. But then when he comes back at the end of the movie, he comes back as himself. But because the team have practiced and they've gotten better, then it shows that they have progressed and they beat their rivals as themselves and not as a team with a werewolf on it. So I'm just saying that there could have been some things that would have changed the criticism of this particular critic.
Yeah. I'm sticking with my thoughts, though. The end sequence, even though they win, which is probably unrealistic, it shows that they are a team. I mean, it's not just Michael J. Fox as Scotty that's good as himself. The whole team is like they're working as a team unit, right. And everybody's, I don't know. I guess I like the cheese.
It's okay to like cheese.
Another one. So R.L. Schaefer from IGN DVD says, it's often ridiculous and filled with 80s cheese, but Teen Wolf does harbor some poignant coming-of-age metaphors and decent helping of intentional and unintentional comedy. I can get on board with this guy's review.
Right. I agree. So up next is Matt Bronson from Film Frenzy. He wrote, rather than a wolf in sheep's clothing, Teen Wolf's basically a standard 80s teen flick in werewolf's clothing. You could say that. I can understand the criticism. I don't agree, obviously, but I understand. I'm not going to be bad at him for saying that.
Yep.
And then Anna Smith from Empire Magazine wrote, Michael J. Fox early lycanthropy. That's what I lycanthrope. That's what I wanted to say. But the word wouldn't come out. It wouldn't come out of me, but that's the word I was looking for.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. So his early lycanthrope comedy doesn't have the easy charm of his later movies, such as Back to the Future franchise or Doc Hollywood, but it's still a diverting enough tale. So yeah, I think I fully agree with this statement. It's definitely a cool story. And she used the word lycanthrope, and I love that word.
Big word. You can tell she writes for a newspaper.
Right. Absolutely.
Or a magazine. I'm sorry, a magazine.
Right. Either way, right? She's using her college degree to full
She
effect.
is.
So finally, Teen Wolf is, as of this recording, available on Max, formerly HBO Max. How did you watch this movie?
That's where I watched it. And I had to update to Max. So it would let me watch
I
it.
was really upset about that. So here's what happened, right? So I have a smart TV, so the apps are on the TV itself. So I'll go and I click on HBO Max, makes HBO Max, and it says, the app needs to update or whatever. No, not that it needs to update. It's not available in my area. I was like, this is impossible. I just watched this on a couple of days ago. What do you mean it's not available in my area? This is Boulder Dash. And I clicked on it a couple of times and it's still I kept getting the same message. So I start scrolling through the apps and I see Max is the very last app on the list and it's been added recently. So I was like, oh my God. So, and I clicked on it and everything worked as it's supposed to. So instead of just changing the name on the app, they created an entirely new app. I was like, this was so unnecessary. Why did you do that? Why didn't you
that kind of stuff is annoying. Mine changed when I updated the HBO Max app on my TV. It did then change to just Max. So I didn't have that same annoyance.
Right.
But it was still annoying to have to update. I'm like, can you just
Right. Well, see, the apps on my TV update all the time, but this is, I guess, because I have an LG, so I guess because of the way LG's technical infrastructure work, they couldn't simply update the app the way they would like to, so they had to create a whole new app. Technology is funny that way. But yeah, that was super annoying, but I'm glad I got to watch it. So that's it for today. Next week is to be determined, as the next episode is still in the planning stages. However, I am scheduled to be a guest on the Middle Class Film Class podcast for the movie trivia tournament. So wish your boy some luck, because like you saw me struggling while I was doing this show, remembering names or movies that I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't. It just wouldn't come to the forefront. So it's going to be an interesting tournament, and I look forward to it. And I'll also be guesting on the Movie Lovers Unite with John D. Gregorio to talk about the movie Wizard. This is the Nintendo movie. So Wizard, starring Fred Savage, is probably Nintendo's first movie used to promote a Super Mario Brothers movie. So if you're keeping count, boys and girls, Nintendo has had 3 Super Mario Brothers movie. The Wizard is the first one. The second one was Super Mario Brothers movie starring John Leguizamo and what's his name? And the third one is the movie that just came out, the animated feature. So they finally did it, folks. They finally did it.
Well, that sounds fun. Good luck on those shows. And you're human. Brains.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backlook Cinema, or on Facebook or Instagram at Backlook Cinema Podcast. And if you're on Mastodon at Backlook Cinema at mstdn.party. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. So if there's something that you want to see in the show or something that you want to see improved, if you want to just give some feedback, hit me up on the email. So Katie, my gal, do you have any additional plugs?
We covered it. I guess I'll just one last time say, hey, listeners, if you like this show, you'll probably like my show, Retromade, your pop culture rewind. Check it out. I think you'll like it, YouTube or in your podcast app. And if you like Rocky, check out One More Round. It's also on the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network. All those old action hero guys, there's a whole network of shows, and One More Round is just one of them. So if you like nostalgic fun, I think you'll like some of the shows that I'm on.
Absolutely. One last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow by spreading the word about Backlook Cinema, the podcast. And I know you've enjoyed our guest, Katie, so please listen to Retromade. Believe me, it matters. I've been Zoe Richardson. Be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.